I think the lack of awareness is a big challenge in the insurance sector at large.
It's not considered to be a necessary expense. People don't think anything is going to happen to them. For them, the probability of life threat is almost as good as zero, which means that the natural tendency is to avoid the product. When you know that you're not going to die, why will you buy a life cover? What my industry serves is prosperity and peace of mind. The way I see the healthcare industry in India, it's going the US way, and therefore healthcare costs are likely to go up in the years to come. A good health insurance policy is a must.
Our guest on this episode of Uwacha is Shiv Tiwary. Shiv Tiwary is the Chief Marketing Officer at a leading life insurance company in India, overseeing branding, social media, corporate communication, and digital distribution. Shiv Tiwary has over 19 years of cumulative experience, has held leadership positions at prominent private sector banks, multinational insurance companies, and has also consulted at Tata Strategic Management Group. An alumnus of NITI Mumbai, Shiv is a financial literacy trainer, startup advisor, and a distinguished industry member with vast experience in insurance and banking. Let's hear Shiv unbox patterns and unleash his perspectives on Uwacha. All right, welcome to Uwacha, Shiv. And this is a podcast where we unbox perspectives and unleash some new patterns that we can identify in our conversations. So thank you so much for agreeing to join us here.
Thank you, Saveen, for having me here today.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be talking to the two of you.
No, thank you, honestly, Shiv. I mean, you've taken a lot of time from your schedule, and we really appreciate your presence here.
It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, so we want to understand your background and some learnings and share perspectives here. So you started very early in the merchant navy and now you're in insurance space. So just walk us through that journey.
I actually want to know how you got into merchant navy as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So my life journey, I grew up in a small town, Ranchi. And those were not really the information days. So information was scarce. And I came from a very middle class background. So the only way out, or rather the only way to achieve what I aspired to, was to study. There was no other way out. So I did. I was part of the rat race that prevailed at the time.
So what did you study?
So I studied science.
Science.
Yeah.
And
those days, becoming an engineer or a doctor were the easiest ways to make a career for yourself. So I chose science, engineering. I cleared several entrance examinations. I dropped out of IIT to study marine engineering. Yeah, it's a interesting one in my life. A lot of people, including my dad, are not very happy with my decision. But I said, to realize my aspirations, I need to do something very different. Those are not the days when you had all these multinational organizations, big private sector firms recruiting. So those were mostly the PSU firms recruiting from all the top engineering colleges. So I wanted to be different from my dad. My dad used to work for SAIL. And I said, if I have to chart a different course, I need to do something very different. So I went to IIT. I dropped out after a month and a half, and I said,
which IIT was it?
Oh, so it was IIT Dhanbad.
Okay.
Those days it used to be called ISM Dhanbad. And so it so happened that I got 22nd rank in that examination, entrance examination, and I had some 2,500 rank in IIT JEE. So I said, if I have to study mining engineering, I'll rather study at, back then it was Indian School of Mines Dhanbad. And I said, I'd rather study there, do petroleum engineering than do coal mining stuff. I went there for a month and a half, and I said, it's a small place, Dhanbad, wants to be here.
Where is Dhanbad again?
There you go. So it's a very small town in Jharkhand, not very far from my hometown. And I said, will the personal side of me evolve in another smaller town? And I said no. So Calcutta was a good place. The admission was through IIT joint entrance back then.
Okay.
So I got into merchant navy. I mean, marine engineering.
Marine engineering. So the decision was mainly on the course rather than the college?
No, it was what I would get after the college.
Okay.
So,
So walk us through, how did you decide? What was your thought process? Because I don't know many people who dropped out of an IIT.
okay, so I was a good student back then. So when I went to IIT, ISM Dhanbad or IIT Dhanbad as you call it, I said, well, the course is great, professors are great, my peer set is amazing. But is this the place that will help me evolve as an individual?
It's a very powerful question to ask yourself when you're a teenager, I think.
17 and a half.
Wow.
So I asked this question whether I'll really evolve here. Is this the place that I really belong to? I didn't want to see myself aging in small towns.
Interesting. What triggered you to ask these questions at that age? Is it you had some mentor, somebody who is prompting, or is it just innate wisdom?
No innate wisdom. I still am not so wise. It was the inner voice. It's the inner voice.
Okay.
This is not where you belong.
Clearly, that was pre-Google and pre-Instagram. When you're getting inspired up by somebody to actually say, you know what, even I need to.
Okay, so the more people I consulted, everybody advised me against the decision. Every single soul.
Okay.
It's a better place. Why do you want to go do merchant navy? You'll be sailing on board a ship. You'll be living away from family while working. 6 months on, 6 months off. And I said, if I do the same things, I'll get the same outcome. So I'll try
Very
something
interesting.
else.
So what was your pros and cons list looking like when?
It was an intuitive.
Because it was Calcutta is a check because it's a larger city.
It was an intuitive call.
Okay.
While Calcutta was definitely the draw, it was also a paramilitary institution rather than a civilian institution.
Okay.
And in my family, there are quite a few who went to the forces. So I wanted to see how it feels donning the uniform. So
there it is. Which is,
I still carry my college icon.
so the love for the uniform in a sense, or the attraction of the uniform in a sense.
To some extent.
Great.
But of course, the career was exciting. I knew after I graduated, I would get to see places that otherwise I may not be able to. I'll make good money. Should I say tax-free good money?
So tell us some interesting places you visited once you joined the Merchant Navy.
Several. So more than the places, the experiences. My best experience has been crossing the Panama.
The Panama Canal.
Yeah, the Panama Canal.
What was so good about it?
Oh, it's so scenic.
Okay.
I don't think I have been to a place more scenic than the Panama Canal. You enter Gatun Lake, it's a freshwater lake. The scene there is amazing. It's Amazon. And the other experience was crossing the Suez. Oh, it's very difficult. You have desert on both sides and it is exceedingly hot.
Are you glad you're not on that ship that got stuck?
No. That too would have been an experience for the crew, I'm sure.
It was what stuck for about a couple of months, right?
Yeah. Evergreen.
What was your job there? What were you doing on the ship?
I was an engineer.
Okay.
And I used to do watchkeeping for 4 hours. So 4 to 8 in the morning, 4 to 8 in the evening. And 8:30 to 12, I used to do my maintenance work. So 8 hours of watchkeeping.
Maintenance of what?
Say, for example, if the compressor needs an overhauling, that's not part of watchkeeping. So I would do it during the
maintenance
time.
Okay.
If let's say there's a pump that needs to be overhauled.
Okay.
So I would do that.
And what does watchkeeping mean?
Watchkeeping means that you are responsible for operations during those times.
Okay.
So the entire engine room is under your custody.
Okay.
So you got to ensure that all operating parameters are within the range they are supposed to be. They are all working fine. You have to ensure that there is absolute control over any instances of pollution.
Okay.
You got to ensure that there is complete safety of operations while it is happening. So,
how big were the ships that you were kind of?
So the one that I sailed on was capacity. So I used to work on a ro-ro ship.
Sorry, what ship?
Ro-ro ship, roll-on, roll-off ships.
Okay.
And we used to carry cars. We would be chartered by the likes of Hyundai,
Got it.
Toyota, and we would carry ships. So I joined in at Houston. The ship was coming from South America.
Okay.
We sailed North America along the East Coast. We crossed the Atlantic. We reached Europe, did several ports. Then we went to UK, back to mainland Europe, crossed the Suez, Singapore, Japan, Australia, Korea. From Korea to US West Coast,
Wow.
back to Korea, US East Coast, crossing Panama,
Wow.
and back, then back to Japan.
And this was how many years of?
So it was a little less than 2 years
Okay,
overall.
great.
Yeah, overall good experience.
So what made you leave that exciting job and then
And
make
would
a
you
shift?
define it as exciting in hindsight?
Yeah.
So instead of calling it exciting, let me call it defining.
Okay.
I started valuing resources working on the ship. When you are working in a very closed ecosystem, howsoever resources your company may have at its disposal, when you are in the middle of the ocean, you have what you have. So if you run out of any resource, so for example, if you run out of a coupling, you have 3 spare couplings. If you don't maintain your machinery well and all the 3 couplings happen to break, then you're out of that spare part. So you have to ensure that whatever you do is right the first time.
This is a very limited scope for making errors.
Indeed. So you might wonder that fresh water was the most scarce resource that we had. My ship did not have a freshwater generator. So we used to fill our freshwater tanks at ports. If there is any leakage anywhere, you run out of fresh water. The problem is not about drinking. The problem is the same fresh water is going for cooling your various engines. The same water is going into your boiler. You can't run your boilers on seawater. It's a nightmare. So you got to value your resources, everything that you have on board, including people.
In some sense, did it make you more grateful to what you have access to? Right?
Absolutely. I learned that I must value everything that is available at my disposal today. I must preserve, I must recycle, reuse.
And so you said it was a defining experience. So was there anything that added to you being Shiv Tiwary in the
overall
post
experience,
factor?
I would say several instances. We were once stuck in the middle of Atlantic because the main engine failed. We did everything in our capacity to salvage the situation. Of course we did, but it took us a lot of time, lot of experimentation, and everybody rallied. Everybody, single soul, including the guys who were non-technical.
How long was this resolution period after you found? 3 full days.
3 full days, 72 hours. I don't think any of the engineers got on any sleep.
How many lives at stake?
24.
24. Okay.
Oh, we were never scared there will be loss of life. We were confident that we'll be able to resolve.
Interesting. So what next after? What happened after Merchant Navy?
Oh, Merchant Navy was a great experience. But what I realized, it's a very standardized work. As an engineer, there are all standard operating processes that you need to follow and you're through. And therefore, the intellectual satisfaction out of that job was limited. And maybe I wanted more. So the quest for greater challenges is what took me to my next shore.
Which was?
NITI back then, now known as IIM Mumbai.
Okay.
So
you went for an MBA program?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Another great experience, or rather should I say, set of great experiences, which then put me in the orbit of consulting. I started off post-MBA with Tata Strategic Management Group as a consultant in the consumer and retail practice.
And I think that's exactly what you said, right? It's too intellectual and...
It is. It was, in fact, the best part about consulting is it channelizes your thoughts very differently. Very structured thinking process. Teaches you how to look at problems and find solutions in a very systematic approach. That was a great learning experience of 3 years.
Any specific strategy or challenge that you remember that you cracked and you're extremely excited about it?
Let me talk about my experience in Sri Lanka. I won't name the client, but we were working for a client in Sri Lanka that wanted to understand what they should or how they should be moving forward with their retail strategy. So, in fact, it was a client that had walked into our office to seek our advice. So we had not pitched to them that we can solve this. So that was a very interesting project, working in an alien land. I think culturally we are similar.
But there are subtle differences. Yeah.
Okay, manageable. But of course, India, business-wise, is advanced.
It's more matured, right?
It's more matured.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was easy to work there. What had happened there was my associate. So I was a project lead, and my associate, he got chickenpox after 3 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. So the problem was the hotel wanted to evict us. No other hotel would accept. No airlines would bring him back home. There were no hospitals except for the government hospital in Sri Lanka that would allow patients with contagious diseases like this. So we were caught in the middle of a jam, managing that situation, getting a completely new replacement for my associate, and still managing timelines. Again, I'll say it came from my time at the ship.
It taught you how to work under time pressure and
yes. First, how to salvage the situation. It's not easy when the hotel is asking you to
evacuate. Yeah.
It's not easy when you figure out that the only way out is to reach out to one of the client's senior colleagues and request if one of his apartments is available for temporary lodging for 10 days.
So you kept him there and...
No. Convince the hotel.
Okay.
Convince the hotel. Nobody will enter. I will do the clean his room because I had chickenpox in my past.
Got it.
So it took convincing. Of course, the hotel understood. They said, if you can do it, we'll also find somebody to clean the room who's got chickenpox in the past. So it was about negotiating through the various stakeholders. Yeah. The bigger challenge was I got a replacement who would not work on the project for the last 3 weeks. So bringing him up to speed
was not easy.
Wow, that was difficult.
Great.
But he was another capable guy. So he picked it up well. And the sweetest part was the client was very happy. We got a repeat business from the client.
Wow. So after that, how did your career move ahead? After consulting?
So great experiences. I got promoted right after this project. The going was great. What I realized was I wasn't really creating anything out of my own hands. While we were discussing at a 35,000 feet level in terms of how various parts should look like and which part should move where. But I wasn't really the guy moving any other parts. And I said, the real hang of business will come only when you're doing things on your own. And that is when I said, I need to move to a line function. I need to move to an operating role rather than an advising role. It's easy to advise, na? The cost of failure is on the client.
Yeah.
So I said, I need to be that risk taker. So it so happened that I met my former super boss, and he offered me a role and he said, I wanted to do sales. And he said, well, I don't have a sales role to offer to you immediately, but I promise in 2 years' time, you will be able to move to sales. So I said, okay. And then we have a deal.
And this was in banking?
This was in insurance.
Insurance, okay.
Insurance happened. Life insurance happened to me. And true to his word, in 2 years' time.
Did you have any experience in the consulting world with insurance?
No, none.
So it was a fresh start.
So the movement was strategy to strategy. So from consulting, I moved to corporate strategy. And from corporate strategy, I moved to sales.
Got it.
So there was continuity at least on one front.
So, knowing what you know, when do you choose to build yourself? What is the framework that you would use to solve problems internally versus going to consultants? What are those things that will define this is something that is a problem that
We can solve it.
we can solve internally or we should solve internally versus no, this is not something that we should spend time on. We should actually get an outside in perspective. What defines that?
This is a question for a CEO to answer. Okay.
Sure, but
But let me take a shot.
yeah.
See, there are times when the capability to solve like a consultant does not exist in-house. I mean, at the operating level, not many people are exposed to or looking at things from a 35,000 feet level. And therefore, for a lot of people to zoom out and look at the big picture, that capability may not exist. Even if the capability exists, the bandwidth may not be available. So it is best outsourced when the capability resides within and there is bandwidth available. The question to ask is, will my internal research / internal consulting be viewed as a biased opinion coming from an interested party? If it is going to be viewed by stakeholders as a biased opinion, then I will need to use a third party who's going to produce a completely unbiased view, which may not work for my agenda, but a decision needs to be made either ways.
Yeah.
So that's when I'll bring in a consultant. If that is not the case, when my outcome is likely to be judged biased, then I'll do in-house. Because it's also going to be a great learning opportunity for the internal teams as well.
So tell us about insurance now. So you went into life insurance. So you've been in touch with the industry for how long?
Now 16 years.
16 years. So that's like close to being a veteran. So, so tell us, like, I don't even know if all of us in the room have life insurance. Do you guys have life insurance? I don't know. Yeah, all of you? Good. So for those of us who have not even had a life insurance, why should one lead a life insurance?
I'm glad you asked me this question. Most of us, I included, assume that accidents will only happen to my neighbors. Ill health will only happen to my neighbors. I will only go through geriatric deaths. That's how people should actually look at life. Honestly, that's how people should look at life, because if they start feeling that something is going to happen to me today, tomorrow, day after, then they'll say, to hell with the work, let me enjoy whatever time I have. And the world is not going to progress. But completely ignoring the fact that I am also susceptible is the most obvious reason why people think it's an expense that I don't need to incur.
I've heard this phrase that insurance is an investment, right? And not like, I don't know.
Insurance, then you're not talking to the right insurance people.
Oh, is it?
All right. So I
Good, we have one here to educate us.
I look at it a little differently. What my industry serves is prosperity and peace of mind. Prosperity, I'll touch upon. Peace of mind is the safety net that comes along with your life insurance policy. Because people don't think anything is going to happen to them and they're going to only die a natural death, and therefore perceive insurance to be an expense rather than something that's going to yield outcomes. The larger insurance industry finds it convenient to say, okay, if you survive, if you outlive the policy, you'll get your monies back with reasonably good returns.
And that's why it's sold as an investment.
It becomes a protection cum investment solution.
Which is not the true purpose of insurance.
No, it is true in both cases, because life insurance industry is the only one that can offer you long-term solutions. So for example, a fixed deposit is a 10-year product. Ever heard of a fixed deposit greater than 10 years?
No.
But you will often encounter life insurance products that are lifelong.
Maybe 30 years.
No, lifelong. As long as you survive. I issue policies that guarantee cash flows, 30 or 40 years, 44 years. It's the only tool that's available to retail consumers where you can underwrite your returns over such long periods. If you look at the Western markets, the interest rates have fallen down considerably.
Not in the last 18 months, but
But the historical averages are far low.
correct.
They haven't been like this since donkey's numbers of years, right? There was a time when the rates in the US are comparable to what they are today.
Yeah.
So in the long term, there will be fluctuations in interest rates. If somebody is approaching retirement, 40 years is a very long time. I will definitely be the faggot of my life in 40 years' time. I will not want to go through the interest rate risk when I'm closer to retirement. I may have risk appetite today. I will not have the same risk appetite, say 15 years down the line.
Yeah.
So I will need to smoothen my yield curve and say I'm okay with a straight line outcomes than put in my money when the interest rates are low.
One of the questions that I keep kind of asking, I work with Discovery as well very closely. And is life insurance sold or bought?
Always sold.
And why is that? If it is actually a need, why does it have to be sold?
It's often sold,
Rarely.
rarely bought.
Bought. Yeah.
And the reason again lies in the fact that people don't think anything is going to happen to them. For them, the probability of life threat is almost as good as zero, which means that the natural tendency is to avoid the product. When you know that you're not going to die, why will you buy a life cover? It is only when people think that, okay, I have been diagnosed with ailment X or ailment Y, is when it triggers a need for protection, because the causal effect has already started, which invites anti-selection.
There is obviously conversations on universal basic income elsewhere, and even in India, I think there is I think conversations that are happening in fringes. Are there similar conversations on universal basic insurance, life insurance?
So our regulator has been talking about insurance for all by 2047.
Okay.
So it is not an alien subject.
Sorry, I'm going to rephrase, because I think my insurance regulators' vision, the way I understand, is to make insurance available in such a way that all 1.4 billion of us can buy it.
Mhm.
Is there a thought process to make it available at the cost of the state, because it is a need and because people genuinely don't want to be morose in their thinking? Why do I have to buy it? Why can't it be part of my birth certificate?
If I can rephrase your question,
Yeah.
the state sponsoring your life,
Yeah.
it's a technical question.
Sure.
I will respond a little technically.
Sure.
Life insurance is a contract.
Okay.
So there is a proposer and there is a life assured. The proposer needs to have a stake or needs to incur a loss if this risk were to devolve. The life risk on the life assured were to devolve. Right. Therefore, there has to be an insurable interest on part of the proposer. So, for example, I cannot be a proposer on your life
Okay.
because it creates a moral hazard. Now, with the state, it may not so happen. But there has to be a reason for the government also to put that money in.
Got it.
So that is part one. Part two is the government is cognizant.
Sure.
So PMJJBY
Yeah.
was a step in that direction.
Got it.
But you pay from your side because you and your family, they have a financial interest in your life. So you please pay. And the government really worked hard towards making that
I agree.
policy happen.
And today, I think all bank accounts come along with.
No, you have to opt in.
Okay.
you have to opt in. It's not.
Which means it is there as a product.
It's there as a product and it's very affordable.
Amazing.
It's affordable.
And
so the government has already done it.
okay. And when you say it is a step in that direction, what is the vision there? And more as an industry observer, and you've been in the industry for 16 years, what is the, utopian state?
Okay, so the utopian state is everybody being covered for at least 20 times their annual incomes.
Okay.
That will be a dream come true, because most people are, even the ones who are covered, are underinsured, and therefore right insurance is absolutely important. Whether it comes by way of bundling it with savings or on a standalone basis, it is important, and it should happen at least 20 times of your annual income as a thumb rule.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just want to go back just to some basics, right? Because I think the lack of awareness is a big challenge in the insurance sector at large. So what are we talking about? I think 2 to 4% is the penetration currently for
Yeah, you're there.
in India, right?
3.2% would be, I mean, it'll be as a percentage of GDP. That's
Yeah.
what gets measured. But yeah, you're right.
So out of 100 people, only
Is that
3
the
or
right way
4?
to measure?
You can measure it in different ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Why is this the more accepted industry norm?
because that's what you can measure. You can measure GDP, you can measure the insurance premiums collected.
Penetration.
But you can also measure the number of people who have insurance premiums, and you can measure the number of people.
Yes.
So why is that not the norm?
Over the last few years, the industry has started collating all the data.
Okay.
But if you add together all the policies that I have, I may have 2 policies from company A, 2 policies from company B.
Sure.
If you do not dedupe,
Yeah.
then you will end up counting me twice.
Yeah.
So at an industry level, it started to happen now.
Got it.
But for the longest time, all the companies were holding data in silos.
Got it.
So IIB, Insurance Institute,
Got it.
is now collating all that. So hopefully we should start seeing how many lives are insured.
Why is the penetration so low? Apart from lack of awareness, I think there's a lot for us to do.
It's not considered to be a necessary expense. So if you have to look at the expense basket for a household, it'll be part of the discretionary expense and not the non-discretionary.
Mandatory.
So non-discretionary is your education, rental,
Correct,
medicals, food, etc., etc. This would clearly fall in the discretionary expense.
Which you may choose to do
You choose.
when you have some sufficient additional funds as such, right?
2 is, these are long-term contracts, and you are essentially binding yourself to a long-term commitment
To keep paying the
to
premium.
keep paying.
So let's make it very easy. So if it's a life insurance cover that somebody is buying, what should be the insurance amount they need to look at as a ballpark? You just mentioned it, 20
Times of the
20
annual
times.
income. That should be the cover, but it also varies from age to age. So a life insurance policy, at least the way I look at it, should not be used from a profiteering perspective.
Yeah. Standalone life insurance.
Standalone life insurance policy. So for example, it should be looked at it from a income replacement point of view. So if, let's say, I aim to work till the age of 60, my life insurance policy should be such that it takes care of the discounted value of my future incomes brought to date.
Yeah.
So that is ideally what it should be. Thumb rule is when you are
20x.
your prime earning years, 20x. When you're closer to retirement, maybe 10x should be sufficient. So for example, when I reach 55, probably I don't need as much insurance. I probably need only 10 times of my
10
annual income.
times. But if you're, let's say, 25,
You could go up to 25 because your incomes are also going to rise exponentially.
right. What about health insurance? What's that figure like?
Well, I'm not a subject matter expert on health insurance, but healthcare costs are rising. The way I see the healthcare industry in India, it's going the US way. And therefore, healthcare costs are likely to go up in the years to come. A good health insurance policy is a must.
And any number, thumb rule that,
Not an expert, but one should definitely cover their whole family including their elderly parents.
Coming back to life insurance, right? Obviously, technology is kind of influencing all parts of our lives. And I know for a fact that there is a lot of investments that are happening in the life insurance space as well. What are the trends that you are seeing from a technology adoption? What are the challenges that technology can solve, but is still not solving yet? Because we might be able to kind of pass through an airport. I just learned today morning about Digi Yatra without any hassles. Is it as easy to buy a life insurance here for the willing buyer?
We are going there. We've
Okay.
not reached there. The reason is the financial leverage in our business is extremely high.
Explain that, please.
I'll explain. So you pay a premium of 10,000 rupees.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a youngster, 25 years of age. You pay 10,000 bucks for a life cover worth 1 crore. Your leverage on that is 100 times.
Sure.
No, your leverage is
1,000.
I mean, if you kind of look at it,
1,000 times.
I'm also paying every year.
No, I need to buy policy, pay first year premium.
But
Right.
you can
Potentially get a claim worth 1,000 times.
Fair.
So the risk reward ratio is extremely skewed.
Fair.
This incentivizes fraudsters to try the luck. And therefore, the degree of diligence that needs to happen before issuing a policy, I think needs to be of a very superior order.
Sure.
That is where a lot of data and analytics is going in. So if I have to talk about the whole of life insurance value chain, there has to be a lot of process automation in the first place. It needs to flow through seamlessly because customer has now got used to very seamless transactions.
Yeah.
It's like on the fly.
thanks to UPI and
Thanks to UPI and a lot of technological convergence that has happened. So you have hyperlocal deliveries that happen. So people are now used to instant gratification.
Yeah.
And people seek, our consumers, they seek instant gratification even today.
got it.
Now, in the quest for instant gratification, no insurance company will lose sight of the risk management.
Yeah.
And therefore, what has happened is a lot of investment is currently happening on the risk management side.
Okay.
Whether it is KYC, because this is also a product that can be used for money laundering. So all the KYC, AML guidelines need to be thoroughly taken care of. So that is one. That's easier because with all these eKYC and other things that have happened in the industry, I think that part is getting solved or has already been solved for. What is not gotten solved for is the risk management, the fraud management. The other thing is the non-availability of medical records. So there are policies that need to go through medical underwriting process. And those records are not available on a real-time basis. One has to really go through those medicals. That is part A in terms of the small ticket size instant fulfillment.
What is small ticket size here?
Term plan, for example, a 10,000 rupees
Term
policy, 15,000 rupees policy, which gives you a cover for a crore of rupees. There's a very high leverage there. So insurance companies want to really ensure that they've done risk assessment from all angles. So medical needs to be triggered to estimate the health of the life.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one. Two is, these are long-term contracts. When it comes to savings products, they are more involved decisions. So a discussion with a financial advisor, family or friends becomes important. And therefore that kind of breaks the chain. When there's a need for an in-person interaction, the chain breaks. How do you create simple products, for example? Insurance products are also complex. So how do you simplify products? And how do you ensure that to the extent that it is possible, the customer is able to understand and appreciate what is there?
And in a sense, I think that is a fundamental conundrum that I see between financial services companies and technology services companies.
Yes.
Financial services companies obviously have to kind of gravitate around risk management, and at the cost of customer experience. But technology services companies probably don't have that much amount of risk that they take, and so consequently they're able to kind of focus a lot more on customer experience. So let me ask a more open-ended question. Do you think customer experience is given an equal kind of importance in the design of products? Because clearly, obviously, risk management can wipe out the company, but customer experience can give you a few 5-star ratings perhaps on Google.
It's a difficult question. If I have to pick between risk management and customer experience, I would pick risk management over customer experience. The reason for that is a poor risk management
Yeah.
can probably curtail my ability to service claims that will come from legitimate customers. Ultimately, at the end of the day, business that we are in is about risk pooling.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing enough diligence in terms of risk selection, then I don't think I'm doing justice to the pool of risk that I've created. That also has a dimension of customer experience.
We now want to sort of get into some, let's say, life hacks or tips in general, because your career has been very interesting, right from being in merchant navy to consulting to now insurance. So any specific book that you read that really inspired you?
Steve Jobs' biography by Walter
Isaacson.
Isaacson. I think that's my favorite. It's a separate matter that I idolize Steve Jobs. Therefore, that book.
What about risk management or customer experience did you learn from him? I want to understand risk management lessons from Apple, because we always hear customer experience lesson from Apple.
Okay, so it depends on how you define risk in your line of business. To Steve Jobs, the biggest risk was being mediocre.
Yeah.
And that is a risk that he wanted to mitigate at all times.
By creating something extraordinary.
That is one. He's a guy who pushed everybody exceedingly hard to the point of being labeled as ruthless in his pursuit for excellence. That is one. Two is, he also said, you ask the customer what they want and you produce what they want. By the time you take it to them, they moved on to something else. You got to imagine the future. You got to reimagine the future if you need to. So iPhones would not have come if he had not reimagined a phone.
Yeah.
I think for him, the biggest risk was being mediocre. And that's what he mitigated. So
what is success to you? Because Steve Jobs, I think the world agrees that he was successful.
Yeah, he was.
How should people define success?
Okay, everybody has a different yardstick to measure success. I will share mine. Your ability to influence a large number of lives of a large number of people. I think that is success.
Okay.
So I'll repeat myself. To me, the ability to impact a large number of lives is what success is. But this success comes with great responsibility, because while authority can let you go in any direction, it is the sense of responsibility that will always guide you in the right direction. And therefore, being successful is not about getting that authority, but attaining that sense of responsibility, which will allow you to feel satisfied that, look, I made a difference.
And this is more from the sector point of view, right? Like, what do you see as a big game changer in the insurance sector? Because at least in our lifetime, we've not seen a big shift in the way insurance is sold or bought, or the way people experience it. There's not been a big shift. I may be wrong.
If you're not experienced, you're not experienced.
Yeah.
No, and you're not vastly wrong.
But
Compared to how we do payments, for example, to how we experience insurance.
Yeah.
Even now, claims, for example, is a challenge to most, from what I hear.
So what do you think changing in the next decade, let's say?
I think it's the customer experience that will define how the industry evolves. Over the course of the journey that the industry has been pursuing, I think it's not losing sight over customer experience. It is just that they are acing risk management because that is the bedrock of the business. Everybody goes through their moment of truth. And once you have experienced, you convert, you start believing. But if you're not,
I think COVID was a big.
yes, so that brought in a great change in perspective in the minds of people that it is a product that is absolutely necessary.
Vital, yeah.
Yeah.
So over the course of the next decade or two, most people would have matured to have witnessed some moment of truth, either with respect to health or life. And that's going to change the perspective.
Last question. Okay, last question I think will be around just beyond finance and the work that you've done is essentially any hobby that you pursue that keeps you going.
Okay. So I used to play the guitar when I was younger. I used to. I still have I bought a guitar not too long ago. But I don't practice, I don't play that often. In my free time, I love creating memories with my daughter.
Great.
So going out on a long drive, spending as much time as I can with her, I think I would call that as my hobby.
Amazing. No, I still have one last question too.
Good.
One more last question.
Sure.
Knowing what you know, experiencing what you have, if you were to restart at 30 or 25, what would you choose and why?
To restart, life insurance, and life insurance.
Really?
Indeed.
It's amazing. You're in the right place then, clearly. But thank you so much, Shiv.
The
It's
pleasure
been-
was mutual. I hope I'm leaving you behind with some intriguing thoughts.
Yeah,
and hope
absolutely.
to convert you guys into life insurance users.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh,
Totally
the pleasure
appreciate
was all mine.
it. Thank you, everyone, as well.
Thank you, Shiv.